Good morning, everyone. Apologies for the late start. Welcome. I'd like to call to order the November 18th public hearing for the City of Tampa's Barrio Latino Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm Rich Simmons, Chair of the Commission. If you're here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, wall sections. Staff presents staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you're here to speak for or against the project, because your time will be limited to 3 minutes. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and make their decision based upon the city ordinance, chapter 27 of the city zoning code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, design review comments, and the testimony given today at this public hearing. The BOC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones, and we'll start with the introduction of the commissioners, starting on my right.
Good morning, Chase Corley.
Good morning, Susan Klaus-Smith.
Good morning, Vivian Solaga.
And from staff, we have Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Heather Bonds, Jared Varnum, and from City Legal, Dana Crosby-Collier. Okay, we have the minutes from last month's meeting, October 28th, in our packet. Has everyone had a chance to review? We have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from last month's hearing.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Fernandez.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Welcome to this morning's hearing. Apologize about the late start, but we will try to make up some time. For that purpose, I'll go ahead and delay the preservation in progress to next month, but I do have the BLC staff approvals for both September and October that I'll enter into the record, and you can accept by motion at the end of the meeting. With that, we'll move on to disclosure of conflicts of interest and ex parte communication, and our legal counsel will lead that discussion.
Good morning. Dana Crosby-Collier from the City Attorney's Office. I'd like to ask if any member has a conflict of interest with any item on the agenda this morning.
I do not.
None. Thank you. And has any member engaged in an ex parte communication regarding any item on the agenda this morning?
I have not.
Thank you.
We do not have any continuations to act upon this morning, so we will go ahead and move to the swear-in. Anyone in the audience who's going to be presenting or providing public testimony, if you could please stand and raise your right hand so Mr. Varnum can provide the swear-in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony being provided today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And with that, we are ready for our first case, BLC 25-00-00251, and Mr. Vila will present that case.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila. I am a planner with Historic Preservation. Moving forward with our first agenda item, the address with this parcel is 2306 East 9th Avenue. It is a vacant parcel with the underlying zoning of YC2. The request is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction for single-family residence with site improvements. The structure will be approximately 1,750 square feet, and the architectural style is a two-story shotgun house. Moving to the photo presentation. Starting with a 1929 Sanborn map, you see the density and the fabric that's here. The yellow illustrates that the surrounding properties were frame construction. You see the D and the density here. The D goes towards dwelling. It was a single-family dwelling unit. And you see the setbacks of the structures, how closely they are together in this urban environment. Property in question is highlighted in the shaded green. It does face 9th Avenue. To the west, you have 23rd. To the east, you have 24th. And there is an alley that runs east and west behind the subject site. This is our vicinity map. The property in question, once again, is highlighted in the green. The abutting structures are 2 non-contributing structures, and then you see the inventory on that block. The majority of them are contributing structures. In the YC2 zoning classification, the requirements are in the frontage, the width of the parcel is 25 and the depth is 100. It meets this criteria. You see the narrowness of the lot. Just right next door to the west, the same team came forward and submitted an application reviewed by this board and was approved and then ultimately built. They're going to have a house very similar to this that you see in the scale and the massing. On the other side, which is to the east, you have this non-contributing structure, and as you go down the block, you have a contributing structure. Looking at the street environment, this is looking to the east. Subject site is over here. And turning around, looking back in towards 22nd Street. Directly across the street, you have a period home that is contributing of the craftsman influence. This is looking from the alley that's in the rear of the property towards the south. The good thing about this request as well, that they're bringing the grid back into place, and they are accessing the parcel from the alley. So this is the alley in one direction. That is not very heavily traveled, but the alley in the other direction to the west, you see there's some vehicular access into the site here, and they will continue that vocabulary. That concludes the photo presentation, and I'll have their team come forward.
Good morning, Council. I'm Robert Laurie II, agent for the owner. I'll get set up here. I'm going to start with the PC. One more PC. Okay. I'll start with the site plan. There we go. We have the parcel here with the city sidewalk existing in front. We have the walkway going to the front of the home with 18-inch scores. The property will have grass on the property here. The front setback is set at 10 foot 1 inch. That's the same setback as the house to the left that was recently built. It's also the setback for the house adjacent to that to the left. And I'll go over the setbacks here in a few minutes. So we have a 10 foot 1 setback on the front, 5 foot setbacks on the sides. We have swales on each side that would be very minimal but not visible from 9th Avenue. In the rear, we have the AC unit and equipment in the rear. We have the garbage storage in the rear as well. Our setback in the back dimension is 37 feet 5 inches. The rear driveway here is scored every 5 feet. There is an existing avocado tree on the property that was there. It was under 24 inches when the property next door was constructed. It's now over 24 inches. It's under stress. The roots are into the driveway, the roots are exposed. So the tree is showing distress and has some dead spots in it already. So talking with the city, it appears that we will remove that tree and replace it with a type 1 replacement on site. So, and of course, we have the alleyway in the back, and I'm working with the city for the requirements for that, for paving, for access to the rear. Okay. I'll move on to the projector here, if I can. How do we switch to, there we go. Okay, there we go. So on the street setbacks here, here's the subject property. It's setting, we're gonna set the house at 10 foot 1 inch. This property here is set at 10 feet and 10 feet here as well. This is a non-contributing structure that's pretty far back. This structure here is slightly forward at about 9 feet. This property is at about 13 feet. We're at about 12 feet and 10 feet here. So our 10-foot setback aligns with the rest of the properties there. So if I can switch back to the PC. There we go. I'll move on to the, oh, and also too, on this property, this will have grass on it and there are no fences. I'll move on to the front elevation here. There is, here's the original rendering and how the house was originally submitted for this permit. And part of the staff report was requesting a roof over the open balcony. So speaking with Ron Villa on that, the owner does wish to add a roof there. So this presentation does include a shed roof over the balcony. So on the front elevation here, we have a simulated vent. This is an insulated concrete foam structure, ICF, so it will have an encapsulated attic. The vent on the front will be a simulated vent. We have 1 inch standing seam black roof, 4-inch exposure fiber lap siding. The eaves are at 9 3/4 inch on the overhang. The railing on the balcony upstairs is 36 inches. It's a welded steel railing. We have a standing seam skirt roof around the porch. That's expected to be in a copper color roof. The porch ceiling will be tongue and groove, clear stained. We have 6-inch columns, and those are done in longleaf pine, new growth, clear stained. We have our concrete porch cap, concrete caps on the steps. That's a 4-inch cap. We have the single rail for the front porch here. That sets at 27 inches high. Okay, I'll move on to the rear elevation here. The rear elevation, we have the windows, egress window for the bedroom, door on the back, fairly simple here. Roof height on this is 28 feet 4 1/4 inches. The finished floor elevation is set at 2 foot 1 inch. It does have concrete, the concrete stem wall, which will be covered in smooth stucco. The brick piers will be made out of full-size brick. Here is the side elevation. I know in the staff report there's discussion over the windows. I've discussed that with Ronville as well and the owner. This is a modest single-family home, 2-story. So my design is designing the home from the inside out. So the position of the windows are positioned according to mainly what's inside the house to make the function of the house flow properly with the floor plan due to its modest size. So on this left elevation, and this area right here would be the sofa, couch in the living room. So we put transom windows over that area so that the windows do not drop behind the couch. This window is in the dining room. Here is about the location of the refrigerator, stove, and cabinets, so no windows in that area. In the upstairs, it's important to note, this house does have a sort of lower profile, so the eaves drop down, the roof ceiling drops down into the interior. So the eaves do set fairly low, and looking at the second floor elevation, it's important to note that because of how the windows sit, as you can see here, this window sets fairly low to the floor. So right here in this area, we have the master bedroom, and that is the location of the bed. And here would be the location of the shower. So with that bed being there, it's difficult to locate any windows there. This is the toilet room, and this is closet area. This is the bed area as well right here. So these windows have been placed according to the interior. As we move to the right elevation, we've worked to get a window up towards the front here. This is where the TV will go across from where that switch is a little different now. This is where the TV will go across from the couch on the other side. There's a stairwell here that's a railed stairwell, which allows the window to go behind the stairwell and get an additional window and get additional visual depth on the interior. This is the powder closet. And this is the kitchen area, again, with a larger window there. As we move to the upstairs, this area here is where the TV will go across from the bed, and we've located a small window here. This is the windows in the stairwell. And as we move to the rear here, this is the bathroom for the second bedroom in the rear. It's hard to fit a window into this bathroom, so again, we went with a small transom, which is period correct, circa 1915. It is period correct for ventilation. So we have put a window over top of the toilet there, and of course, on this side right here is the shower. So we're not able to put a window there. Okay. Here is a column detail. We start with it's a 6-inch diameter longleaf pine clear stained. So we're trying to get that rustic, raw look of wood that was seen in Ybor on many homes, and allow that wood to match in well with the darker blue, which is actually 2 doors down is a house with similar blue. So we have a 6-inch column. At the bottom, we have a 1x6 band at the bottom, a 1x4 band here for extra decorative purposes, and a 1x2 at the top. Here we have the railing. I have that down as a composite wood rail, and that will be supported by metal. So rather than just have a simple, straight single rail versus no rail, we did go with the single rail and did a little bit of a modern take and architectural adaptation here to add a little bit of an iron detail at the bottom. Here is the porch section detail again. Here is the ICF wall with the 4-inch hardy lap. The railing set at 2 foot 3 inches. We have the 2-inch overhang on the porch as well as on the steps. On the front porch area, this is full-size brick, not brick veneer. And then there's a wood accent here as well to help carry that wood band around. Okay. Here is a typical wall section down the side of the home. Starting at the top, we have the standing seam. We have an eave drip here set out, a 1x6 smooth hardy fascia board. We move underneath the soffit. This is a 9 inch 3/4 eave. Under the eave, this is done in the longleaf pine. Again, the raw look, to bring that raw look up, to have it, around the band board, around the windows, and up into the soffit work as well. This is a non-vented eave. This will be closed cell foam insulation and an open attic in there. Okay. Something unique to the design of this home is I have taken the ICF block and maintained the center 6-inch core concrete to load bear down on the ICF wall. And the ICF foam itself, the styrofoam part of the ICF, has been outset. That's done for a couple of reasons. One, primarily, is it gives more of a three-dimensional depth to give the home a look of light wood balloon framing with piers underneath. So the home outsets 2.5 inches on the ICF, as well as about another 5/8 to 3/4 with the siding. So we get about a 3-inch difference between the face of the home and the foundation. So the 5-foot setback on the site plan is a setback to the ICF wall itself. So the foundation actually sets a little bit, a couple of inches in from there. The CMU stem wall will be smooth stucco. And then from there, we set real brick that will set out a good 3+ inches from that to give a nice three-dimensional look. I've seen some other homes that have come through the commission and been approved, and they have veneers, and it's just a stem wall with a little veneer stuck on there. So I sought to get a more three-dimensional look to that, to look more true to light wood framing set on piers. Here's the front eave detail. We have the 1-inch standing seam roof, eave drip, fascia, again, the longleaf pine underneath. The front elevations do have a frieze board. Side elevations do not, so that there is more siding between the eave and the top of the window. And again, 4-inch exposure on the lap. I know 6-inch is being used quite often. I felt that the 4-inch is more attractive. It's still a budget type siding that can fit with the budget of the home and give a more detailed look to the home versus the 6-inch that some of the other homes have. As we go to the window detail, again, same eaves. We go into the window here. This is a PGT vinyl window consistent with other new construction. It is inset in about 2.5 inches. It'll have a 1x4 here at the top and wrap in. And we have a 2x material here that slips out for the sill. In the original renderings, underneath that 2x was a 1x4 trim. In the original submission, we're looking to reduce that down to 1x2 to be a lower profile, which would be more historically accurate. As I've reviewed a lot of the Bergert brothers photos and other homes, I found that having a 1x4 under the 2x was a little less historically accurate. So this gives the thinner look to the sill with the 1x4s wrapping around the sides and the top. We have here the siding, and then of course the 1x8 band. Part of this is ability of outsetting the home is this 1x8 band is able to set down and create a cove underneath the edge of the home for having non-visible LED lighting that would create a soft light wash under the home. There would be no visible LED lighting strips from the street. So the only thing that would be visible would be just a light wash of the wall. The LED lighting will have a dial on it that's secluded with the driver, so that once the home's built, we can look at the home and dial that light down to a very subtle glow of just a little wash, similar to when you walk up the steps and then there's lighting underneath the steps. So key point is you will not be able to visually look at that LED strip. Okay, and then of course we have the brick pier here as well. Here's a cross section on the window installation. Of course we have ICF with ICF bucking, drywall, the window frame inset 2.5 inches, 1x material that wraps around, 1x4 clear stained longleaf pine here on the front, and siding here, liquid flashing in the back. Here are some of the doors and windows. It's the Therma-Tru door. This will have the glazing strips that are rounded, not flat. And it has the one panel here at the bottom. And here are the profiles on the 3 windows used. In discussing the window sizes with Ron, an alternative to the transom window would be either to not have the transom windows or to go with a smaller single hung window. I feel as though looking at the home that the smaller transom here does have the better look. It has the better contrast within the 3 windows. I feel that it is period correct, but I feel that going with a smaller window would not look as appealing to have 2 square windows that are, one's kind of medium, one's kind of small. So I feel this design is the most appealing design and functions well with the modest home with the furniture and furnishings that are inside. Here we have the door locks. It's a classical style door lock. We've gone with a mailbox that is around period correct, box style. A little bit of an elevated, nicer mailbox, but it does have that nice vintage look to it. We've gone with barn lights that are historically correct for roughly the 1940s, when barn lights first came out in catalogs as available for purchase as residential use. So we've gone with a modern take and an architectural adaptation to use barn lights on the front of the home. And of course that has a copper globe on it to match in with the copper color of the skirt roof and the shed roof on the balcony. For colors, we have a beautiful needlepoint navy here from Sherwin-Williams, historically correct, and does match in fairly well to the house 2 doors down to the left. Of course, the wood and the lap siding. I do have samples here at the end of my presentation with the colors and the metal, as well as the brick that would be used. It's important to note that this sample comes in veneer, but the bricks will be identical to this veneer sample, but they will be a true size full brick, not veneer. Okay, I think that covers that. So I'd like to go to some additional photos here. This is a very interesting photo that I've been through virtually every Burger photos that they have, as well as the Tony Pizzo photos. I really like going through these photos and taking a really in-depth look into these photos. What we have here is got lots of paper out now. This photo is Burgert Brothers' photo of the Perfecto Garcia Cigar Company on 7th Avenue and 16th Street, taken in 1915. It's considered image 619. As just a reference for scale, only for scale, this building has a standing seam roof that is dark colored here. But what I want to do is zoom in here to the home that's behind the Perfecto Cigar Garcia Company here. As I zoom in here, and again, scale and reference and perspective only across this top of the roof. As we look to the home in the rear, and I zoom in on the home, we can see the home has a dark color standing seam roof on the porch here and a different color roof up here on the top. I suspect this is a tin roof, but this appears to be a standing seam roof in dark color, consistent with, click the wrong button there, consistent with the roof that's next door on the Garcia Cigar Company. The other thing I'd like to look at in this photo is the windows and doors. As we see, a similar type window, or excuse me, a similar type door is what we are proposing on this home, glass in the top, panel in the bottom. And I'd like to take a look here, especially at this window here. This is a similar size window to the subject property that we're presenting. You can see the bottom of the porch here across the bottom and how the window comes low to the porch and the top of the window extends above the top of the door. That is my key presentation right there for this photo, is these elements here and the roof element there. Additionally, we can see these narrow, tall window here. There's also narrow, tall windows on the neighboring house across the street. The next photo I'd like to look at is, this is Burgert photo. It has identifier B29_00127733. It was taken January 14th, 1925. It's 6th Avenue. I don't have the cross street for that. As we can see here, we have rail cars on each side, some smaller homes down the street here, a two-story home here, a two-story home in the rear, as well as some smaller homes across here. I want to zoom in here to the homes on the right side of the street. We'll see smaller homes here. And what I would like to dial in is the roof materials in the rear here. We have a corrugated metal roof in a darker color, as well as what appears to be a standing seam roof in dark color there on the rear of that home. Just for further reference on the darker color standing seam, here is a larger home with a darker standing seam. And this photo here it's really good. Some of the other photos, it's a little hard to zoom in and see that standing seam clearly, but this photo does give us a very good look at the standing seam that they used. You can see seam lines and the shadows and see that it's dark and so forth. So in this photo, that's just a good photo to look at for reference. And that photo is taken in September 27th, 1921. It is the railroad crossing near Florida Brewing Company on 5th Avenue. It's image 511. And for further reference on the styling of the home, we have a home here, narrow, taller windows. This is a hurricane damage picture. It's identifier, the image identifier 529_00006697. Again, you can see the size of the window is a narrow and tall window. And I have included the band board on the home, on our design, in virtual identical to this. We have the 1x8 band board across the bottom with a little sill drip on the top of that. And then the corner trim comes down onto the top of that. I see I'm almost out of time, but going through the staff report, I completely agree with Ron Villa. We've worked hard to make many adjustments on this. I provided the historical reference photos. The swale will not be visible from 9th Avenue. Materials for the hardscape, we will be putting the grass as well as a type 1 tree replacement. I provided the front column details and material selections for the railings. I've discussed the roof materials and the appropriateness for that. Submit a stucco pattern, and that's going to be smooth. So that's an easy one there. I've also provided window detail for the siding and casing. I have final color selections for materials here. I've gone over the window proportions. I've gone over the submitted wall section and provided the porch section as well. And with that, I'm done. I appreciate that. This is my first time doing this, and I have the materials here to review. I have the copper and black, as well as the paint color and the brick.
Thanks. Could you put up a rendering of the project instead of this photo so you can look at it? See if we can make those a little bigger too.
There you go.
Can you make that fit the width on the screen?
I'm not sure about that. I kind of did ask, this is a PDF, so the control plus here, that's about the best I can do. Okay? Yeah, it's not touchscreen, so. If anybody can assist to zoom that in. Oop, there we go, somebody's assisting.
Presentation's pretty small, it's hard to read items. Are you through with your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Vila, staff report.
Could we get that image on the screens in the chambers, please? Thank you. Commissioners, a very thorough presentation. Staff's worked with the applicant numerous times. Staff finds that this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines. When we review the guidelines on page 3 of your staff report, there's multiple bullet items there that alludes to the height and the width, the setbacks, the spacing, the alignment, the materials, and the building forms as well. These items have been addressed. I think a little further discussion is warranted this morning. As he was doing his presentation, I was going through the staff report. Elevation from grade was really not discussed, but that should be compatible with the historic pattern along that block. I know he has some references that he could put into the record. He had mentioned that the swale is not going to be visible from the primary street, which is 9th Avenue. He talked about the hardscape, which is scored properly on his illustrations, would be concrete. He did have additional images and blow-ups of the railings and the columns on the front. The foundation, the stucco will be smooth, and the piers will be brick, a full brick. He provided documentation with that. The installation of the windows are very important with this style of building, the ICF. He had talked about a 2.5 to 3 inch insert, so the window will not be flush with the exterior facade. You have that shadow line that is paramount in those historic buildings that we're referencing. The colors sometimes, the board will delegate that to us. You put a couple samples on the building so we can select sometimes in chambers or with the samples. It doesn't really come across of what that final selection is going to be. We do have an approved color palette in our office that we could take out there and we could work very closely as this project moves forward. They did put the cover over the front doors on the second level. That's just for that indoor and outdoor viability of the project moving forward. The roof material, the final roof selection, this is a very modest 2-story shotgun house. I think that there should be a discussion about the final selection. The house that was reviewed and approved just to the west has a 5V crimp roof, which is more period appropriate within the district. The 5V crimp is for the residential component. The standing seam seems to be more prevalent in the industrial sector and or in larger structures. He talked about some lighting underneath the coping, the house with some LED lighting. I don't believe that has been submitted in the past. And the final window selection, the proportion, he talked, at length about, how that works in the inside, and we get that, but the inside and the outside has to correlate for a successful project. And the final window selection, I believe this is going to be a vinyl window selection. So I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vila. Anyone here from the public wishing to comment on this case, please step forward. Sir? No? Okay. And we'll ask some questions of the applicant, starting with Mr. Chase.
For this rendering, the shed roof is not in this photo, correct? Is that?
That's correct. It is in the 3D modeling here on below.
And then just curious, like if it rains or anything with drainage, does that go onto the surface right there before?
So that is a parapet balcony. So there is a downspout, a round downspout on the left side, as well as a drainage scupper on the side. So that drains off the front of the balcony.
Cool. Versus
Dumping across the edge onto the, steps and things like that, so.
So I'm going to cover a couple of things that did not get referenced in your presentation. And by the way, it was a great presentation, being your first time.
Thank you.
Amazed, very well executed as well as very well organized. So the first item that we didn't get to hear on was the historic reference for elevation from grade. You did a great job of talking about the setback. Can you also emulate that for the elevation?
Yes, the elevation of this home is consistent with the new home that was built next door to the left, the yellow home that was built by the owner of this property as well, and does align with the next home to the left of that as well. This street does have a slope downhill to the east. So as you go to the right, looking at the subject property, things do kind of go down. So there are a couple of places where from one property line to the next, either there's a small retaining wall holding maybe 1 to 1.5 feet elevation difference. So there is a little bit of a slope going down the street there. But it is consistent with the elevation of the home that was built to the left.
And what is the elevation from finished grade for this home?
2 foot 1 inch.
2 foot 1. I missed that. Then there was discussion of the roof material, and I myself picked up on the copper roof. We can talk a little bit about style and gunshot. If it's a gunshot, it evokes certain types of form and shape and materiality. Gunshot homes tended to be for the working class, and copper certainly was not in their budget. And so for me, the material choice is questionable, and then the system itself is questionable, but also the form. The way that it's presented here looks more like a mansard roof construction rather than something that would be more compatible with the gunshot typology.
Yes. I'm the designer of the home and the builder, and the copper roof is something that the homeowner wished to add. I discussed with him not doing copper over the whole entire structure, to just use that if he wanted a copper accent for a little bit of an elevated look, to bring to East Ybor a little bit of an elevated property value look to the home. I discussed with him just putting the copper around the skirt of the roof. Since then, we've also added the shed roof to the top of the balcony. And discussing with Ron Villa and with the owner, the alternative that we would propose to that is to use silver corrugated roofing, which is period correct for the early 1900s. So we're very open to corrugated silver, which would continue to keep that contrast in roof material. As I showed in the other historical photos, there were multiple homes in those photos that had a standing seam roof and dark color, combined with a different roof material of a lighter color 10. I know that I've discussed with Ron Villa about what the Barrio guidelines are on roofing materials. My research shows that 5V crimp roof had its first patent in 1937, and in discussing with other historical architects and looking through all of the Burgert photos, I did not see hardly any 5V crimp in the Burgert brothers photos. It's my understanding through research that the 5V crimp was a replacement roof material, that if a home was built in 1913, 15, 1920, they were most likely roll roofing, a very poor quality of shingle that didn't last very long, as well as sometimes wood shingle. And of course, as I showed, some standing seam, even on smaller homes. Although it's easier to see it on the larger homes, I did show one photo there of a home that had, a smaller home that had the standing seam in the rear in the dark color. So the dark color standing seam room is period correct and historically correct for Ybor, although it was used quite primarily on commercial structures and many of the mid-size homes. There were at least one or two, visible by the photos, smaller homes that had that standing seam and dark color. What I found by reviewing the photos is there's a lot of limitation on what photos were available.
Sure.
So as to covering, because they weren't out taking a lot of photos of little shotgun houses. So, but I did do a thorough research on that to understand the roofing materials. So I feel as though a very beautiful, elegant look for this shotgun style home, which measures 16.5 feet wide. So it is starting to get to the larger side of a shotgun home and to the smaller size of another home. So I feel that a good alternative to the copper. I completely understand the concern there and the question. I was trying to meet the expectations of the homeowner to allow them to make a modification to my design. But I think probably even better design would be corrugated silver.
Okay, and then another thing in this image is the railing choice for the porch. Can you discuss where that came from? Because that's really not in keeping either with a shotgun.
So are you talking
typology.
about the porch railing?
The railing of the porch at the main level. Sorry, I should have.
At the porch level, yeah, because there's two types of railings there.
Yep.
So going over things with Ron Villa and looking at the historical photos as well as looking at existing homes and homes on the street, it was common to have basically a 2x material railing that was a single rail.
Right.
So we went with the single rail. Now, the objective of the home is to bring the black color through as one of the primary colors of the home. So we have the black roof, the black windows, and iron railings that are done in black, as well as black light fixtures, street numbers, and mailbox, and the front door. So that's one of the primary colors of the home. So the railing is consistent with a single rail set at the proper height. Some of the rails were just a single rail. Some of them had like a 2x6 underneath that had some scrolling to give it a design. To give the home just a slightly elevated look and to try to make that single rail look iron and matching that black, I did a modern take using period correct detailing that's more of an adaptation of an iron detail that's seen in Ybor. So if you go through down 7th Avenue, you will see some little, curved iron with a circle in the middle. So to add some extra appeal to that railing and not just have a 2x4 with a 2x6 under it. It is a little bit of an elevated look that's period correct, that's an adaptation to what's already seen in Ybor. So.
Understood. Let me see. So make sure we hit everything on this list that was identified before. When you submitted the sample board, it had the colors for everything except for the intent for the stucco band. What is the color intent for the stucco?
It would be most likely a dark gray.
A dark gray? Okay.
Dark gray.
And then the color of the brick samples, that is the color range that you intend for the brick itself?
That is the exact brick
Okay.
that we intend
Just wanted to make sure.
in a full brick.
Okay. And then when we talk about the windows, it was noted they were vinyl windows. Those are full vinyl windows. There's no wood on either side,
That's
nothing like
correct.
that. It's a full extruded vinyl.
That's correct.
What was the material of the doors?
Those are fiberglass.
Fiberglass.
Fiberglass with a wood grain texture. And with the fiberglass insulated door like that is needed with an ICF home for thermal purposes. It helps to maintain that aggressive thermal envelope that ICF provides.
I think that's it for me. The only other thing is, could you indicate on the site plan where the swale is? Because that was noted, but I didn't note it in the site plan.
Sure. Here on the site plan, now, I originally did the site plan according to what I was seeing done by the previous architect at the neighboring property. The neighboring property was not required to have site plans, but in dealing with the city in their review of this application, they were requesting swales. So it wasn't my intent to have swales, but they are requesting them. But the swales run, it's these double lines right here. Is it up there? There we go. It's the double lines right here. So it just basically runs down the side of the house to this front. It would be the very minimal swale that they're gonna allow me to have, their concern was not having this property drain onto the neighboring property. It didn't seem to be a concern with the previous building permit, but it,
Robert, I filled it in, not
Yeah.
knowing what it was.
yeah, evidently there may have been a swale there and it got filled in, so. So we would have a very minimum swale there. And if needed, I would get with Ron Villa to, add a little fence or something to make sure that it's not visible.
Okay. And then the, any equipment, building equipment, mechanical equipment is where?
It's in the rear, back here,
Okay,
behind, as
Thank
well
you.
as the garbage storage.
okay. Thank you. I'm done for now.
I'm uncomfortable with the proportion of the smaller windows that are along the side elevations. I understand your logic in explaining why you put them there, but it seems to me that it would be more in keeping with the consistency of the other larger, taller windows, if those windows could match it in proportion.
I can totally agree with your point. As the designer of the home, I felt that the 3 window sizes had a good dynamic together, especially with that being a wider transom style window. We are willing to either remove those or to replace some of those with a smaller square style window. My concern as the designer is I wanted the wider visual look of 3 differentiated windows. I feel as though when we get, the larger, taller window, and then we have the mid-sized square, from my design's perspective, as soon as we do a smaller little square, it kind of looks like there's a small square and then a larger square. But of course, we can't do the mid-sized window, for example, behind the toilet. We could possibly do that at the couch location and possibly at the toilet room location. I felt that this was a period correct window. I do not find reference for it in any of the Bergert photos to substantiate it, but I do find it as it is a period correct window that was typically used on other period correct homes of that era, mainly for ventilation. So we are flexible on adjusting that window, but I would really prefer to keep the design as it is because I think it's the most visually appealing design. I discussed with Ron Villa, removing them and replacing them with a taller window. If we did, for instance, remove the window that's at the couch location and put a taller window, it would look fairly well from the exterior of the home. However, we would have a couch most likely based on the floor plan that with the modest floor plan that it is, we have limitations on where we can put furniture and TVs and so forth. So if we do the taller window, for instance, towards the front of the home on the left elevation, it would end up being behind a couch. So interior-wise, it wouldn't function as well, but exterior-wise, it would meet the expectations that I think I'm hearing. So.
Well, I appreciate the explanation, but the design guidelines do not address the locations of furniture within a building.
I understand.
And I think particularly at the ground level, the upper story, but I think at the ground level, the proportion of the window should be readdressed. That's my only comment.
You talk about the transom windows or the 2x6?
Yeah, and I mean, and they're not really transom windows. Transoms are above a door, It's I don't know what to call those.
I call them a transom style.
They're actually awning, but this is the question period, so we can talk about it.
Okay.
So, let me ask, since we're on the windows, let's start there. So, yeah, with the transoms, they're awning windows, so they're operable, so they're hinged at the top and open out, is that the plan?
Yes, yes. Some would be and some would not be. So the ones in the bathrooms would be. I think for cost savings, the ones behind the couch probably would not. We can make them operational if we need to, but with the modest home and budgeting, of course, we're looking to keep the costs down. So, but yes, I can make them operable.
Okay, well, and then the other windows, the tall, the 2x6s, I think it's what, 6'8". You know, the proportions of that kind of bothered me. I think it's kind of close to the floor before, but I think you've shown some historic precedent for those types of windows. So I think it's a better proportion, a mix of those windows there. It kind of comes together a little bit more. But to confirm the size of those windows, those are 2/2. They're operable. They're, you know, sliding windows. Right, the bottom panel opens.
Yeah, that was intended to be a single hung window.
Okay.
And I think
Single,
it's,
and then-
I think it's a 2.460, so it's a little over 2 feet wide.
Right, well, it's 2 panes over 2 panes.
Yeah, okay,
It's
there,
operable. Same with the second window type, the smaller square ones, those are operable.
Yes.
Single hung windows, and then the third type of window, some are gonna be awning operable, some are just gonna be fixed panels.
Correct.
Okay. And where did you come up with the depth of the windows at 2.5 inches? Is that based on the ICF construction? You want to hit the concrete? I see you're making an effort there to inset the windows a little bit. It might be something that can they be pulled back a little bit further to create more depth on the structure?
Absolutely. I went with the 2.5 because I thought that would be sufficient. Now, that's 2.5 to the frame, so when you
Correct.
go to the glass, you would be at 3 at the glass. So, so yeah, if we need to set the frame in further, but I feel as though from the face of the siding material to the face of the glass is about 3 inches. But I set the measurement according to the frame.
Okay, so you have flexibility to go a little bit more
Yes, sir.
inside. It's not set on the ICFs or anything.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. Gutters and downspouts, are there any?
Say that one more time?
Gutters and downspouts.
Yes, there is, I have it on the screen here now. There we go. On this upper location here, there is a scupper in the balcony here, and then there's one single downspout currently that would come off that parapet balcony and would come down the left side. That is a round downspout. And we'll
None for
most
the-
likely either paint that to match the house so it blends in, or we would paint it black.
Okay, so, but there's none for the primary roof, it's only for the
None-
front?
None for the primary roof.
Okay. All right, I'd like to hear a little bit more about your choice of materials for the black standing seam metal roof and then the transition to the copper. I've heard, you know, some of your conversation with talking about your color palette. I have some concerns over the color palette. It's very dark. I know you said you wanted to bring in black, but then you bring in black, then you're also bringing in copper, and then mansard roof. So maybe you could talk about some of the design decisions you made on that and kind of all of those, because I think there's a lot going on, and I think it might be something that's maybe beneficial to simplify some of those things to make it a little bit more period appropriate. I see that you're taking your historic cues from a number of sources, but maybe it just needs to be edited down a little bit to be a little bit more cohesive of a design.
Okay, so yes, the historical photos that I showed did show that when standing seam was an E-bore, that was a darker colored roof. It was most likely a darker brown, from what I understand. So this is a modern take on that, to use a darker colored roof that matches in with darker color standing seam that was around that time period. The black, again, matching in with the colors, not trying to get too many colors at one time. We've got the blue, we've got the raw wood, and then we've got the black of railing, mailboxes, and roof. So that black roof is meant to flow with the design of having the black railings and the other black accents, black windows, so that it all blends in as a cohesive color on that black, then matched with the blue, accented with the raw wood. So I feel the black is in alignment with the darker roofs of that period. It's a modern take to be black versus brown. It does give it a little bit nicer look than if I put brown, which would be maybe more historically accurate. So it does elevate the home. I feel that is important. With it being East Ybor, the property values in there, trying to get a good property value out of it and appeal out of it for today's modern buyer, for that modern take and modern updates that are historically accurate or in alignment with that.
Okay, could you put up a rendering? It might be good to talk about that.
There we go.
Or the one that's accurate with the awning in the front.
I only have the 3D
okay.
modeling with
Gotcha.
that. So with here, again, when you look, you see the black roof, the black windows, the black doors, the light fixtures with a black accent, the railing with black, the door with black, house numbers, mailbox, railing down here, so that black flows through, and then we have the blue flow through, and then of course the wood flow through. So that's the three primary colors on the home to give it a very smooth look. And of course, either for a fourth color, either the copper or silver as an accent.
And talk me through your mansard porch there a little bit.
So, what is that again
The
about?
mansard porch, the copper porch, why does it flail out? I mean, everything
Yeah,
else is very rectilinear and.
Yeah, the skirt roof. That is, one, it allows for an accent there. If you look to the home to the left, this is a rendering, but it's pretty accurate. It's pretty straight up and not, it doesn't have a little extra flair. So the skirt roof is period correct. And it's meant to give the home a little bit of an elevated look.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when you see those skirts like that, it's more of an awning type of structure, not necessarily a primary roof structure, so. And while we're on this, I see a couple different iterations of what's happening with your porch. Are you continuing is the porch completely wrapped in brick up front, or is it more piers? I think some of your elevations showed them as piers.
On the front porch, this brick does wrap all the way around, and it wraps the steps as well, and then it has the wood bandboard above, which kind of draws, it's kind of it's a concrete porch with
Right.
brick, but it has that bandboard to bring in the historical look of having a wood porch. So it kind of combines a wood porch look with the concrete porch. So again, it adds an accent across the front of the home, having the bandboard. But yes, that is real brick, not brick veneer, and then brick piers going down the sides that match.
Okay. And I just want clarification. You talked about a corrugated silver, that you were open to a corrugated silver roofing material. Are you talking about on the porch, or are you talking about on the main roof? Or both?
That corrugated would be just on the skirt roof and on the balcony shed roof as an accent.
Okay.
So you'd have an accent color in the roof. And again, that would be consistent with the photos that I showed that showed some homes did have, a silver tin roof combined with a standing seam and dark
Okay. Do you have any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Okay, we've discussed a number of items, asked some questions here. If you'd like to summarize the design or rebut any of the questions that you've had, you have a few moments to do that, and then we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing.
I think we covered everything pretty thoroughly. I did do a lot of research for this home. I feel as though East Ybor does need, obviously we need new construction in East Ybor. Today's home buyers are looking for a home that has appeal and character, which a lot of the homes, obviously in East Ybor have that. There are obviously some things that we've gone over that feel questionable or maybe pushing the envelope a little bit. I completely understand that. I've taken great care to keep things period correct. I have reviewed other homes that have come through and been approved, and those are very beautiful homes. And those do have, modern adaptations to them and so forth. And a lot of times, I would look at it from a tourist standpoint. If a tourist was driving by and saw the new homes, they would say, wow, that's a nice, beautiful new home. And it is new. So I'm sort of, my objective with this design is for somebody who's a tourist or somebody driving by to look at this home and think that they're actually looking at one of the historic homes that's over 100 years old and feel as though it's a historic home that's been modern, updated, with some modern takes and beauty, and that whoever eventually lives in this home and hopefully owns this home, maybe as a homeowner, is with Ronnie here currently, that they would be very proud of that home, and the neighborhood will be proud of the home for how it looks, for its appeal. So thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll have discussion on the case amongst ourselves. Ms. Salaga, would you like to get us going?
Yeah, I think the only comment I had goes back to the windows, and that those be looked at more carefully by staff in order to perhaps make those the transom style windows a little bit more fitting into the proportions of the house.
I agree. I also agree with your comments during the question period, in that at least at the ground floor on the west elevation, which was referred to as the left, I believe, in the presentation, even though there's furniture potentially in front of windows, that happens in houses every day. Doesn't matter which period of time. How we furnish our homes varies by person, not only just by period of time we live in, and certainly by culture, how you set up your home. So homes can't necessarily accommodate what each user that comes into it does within it. It is in a historic district. It has to follow certain things, right? Certain mandates within those guidelines. And one of those is the placement of windows, their proportions, and also their allotment within a facade. Living rooms are tough, especially with technology integration, and we understand that. If you were to look at historic examples, you would see that many of us, and I have a historic home, and so does at least Vivian on this board, you learn how to live with historic properties. You have them because you love them, right? And there are opportunities within them. I would say the awning style windows, they're appropriate. Maybe the proportion's a little off, in my opinion, but they're not being used appropriately or historically correct. Those typically would have been used in closets to provide light and air so your clothes could get aired out, and provide you a light source during the day. They would be used in bathrooms above sinks and commodes, even smaller square ones in those conditions. And then in bedrooms, they're often placed above cupboard space. So they're appropriate, but they need to be used appropriately. And understood that beds are also the same issue as couches and electronics, but there are ways to accommodate that. So I would absolutely recommend that the west facade, the left facade, be addressed. And
Even on that facade, the east.
even
Well,
the east, I
I
think
think both.
there's an opportunity either side of where the TV's going in the bedroom to think about
Yeah.
placement of windows
Well,
there
even
as
like
well.
that second tall window is it's on the stairs. It's not at the bottom of the stairs, it's in the stairs. So the
Right.
placement there is a little, you're spacing out the windows for a TV.
I would recommend, and I appreciate all the research that was done. It's fairly apparent that you have done a lot of research, but just being in more historic homes that are actually lived in, and understanding how you negotiate space in those. We are inside out thinkers, most of us that are designers. I'm an architect, and that's how I was trained. It's not from the outside in, it's the inside out. But understanding how spaces are used even today in historic properties. So that's what I have to say about windows. I would like to talk about stylistic intent and confusion with precedent, and what if a style is presented to this board, and gunshot was the word that we heard today at the beginning, and it was said a few times, the house is confused a little bit in the front. And I think there's some beautiful details here, but they're not necessarily appropriate for this little house. And I understand where the market rates are and what we'd like to present in terms of price points to get the right buyer in, but it's a little confused.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things happening there. The darker color scheme makes it very, tough. I mean, when you talk about a dark roof, they've gone through great strides to use the ICFs and have great insulative values, but then they put a dark roof on top, which is going to absorb all that heat. I know they're going to insulate that, but it's, and I think they're trying to use those elements together and capture the black, but, the dark blue, the dark black, the natural wood that they want to capture, and then some of the gray. And I think the wood is a nice detail, but typically that's more of a painted application than a clear stain. And then you throw the copper in there, and it's there's a lot going on. And that the mansard, I think we've seen from his presentation that there's some precedent for that, but those typically that's used more for awnings, and this would just be squared up, be a nice little single 2-story shotgun home that's well detailed without maybe that mansard type of porch. Just square that up and get everything a little bit more cohesive. That just throws a wrench in the whole thing, especially with the darker color scheme.
And I don't mind, I'm going to say this, I don't mind the black roof. I think the historic precedents that were presented gave enough indication that darker roofs were appropriate in that time period. I do think looking at the whole color palette overall and understanding it, how it stitches together, is very important, and I would suggest putting a color board together of exactly what you want to do. We have certain ways of pulling our materials together when we're studying color. Just pull those out and look at them in the light of day and really understand what your intent is there. I do feel like, and I love longleaf pine, I think it's a beautiful wood, but when it's put outdoors, it's going to give you, well, yeah, and it's going to give you a feel of a cabin in the woods, which I don't know that you actually want to put here, because the house, it wants to be this beautiful little piece, and you want it to be a signature piece when people drive by, and I don't think that's what you're going to get. It's a very sappy looking grain, right? So it's gonna stand out. And also, although we don't want our buildings to copy a period piece, they need to be complementary. They don't need to mimic them exactly, but they need to complement them.
Yeah, and I think certainly like even like kind of color scheme, like the edge of the roof is the primary color, where typically that would be a trim color on your soffits, right? You pick up the trim pieces from your front balustrades, from your window trim. Usually that's all one type of element, so that would help to differentiate the roof from the primary structure.
Typically, I mean,
No.
it depends on the period of
I
time you're
don't
looking
think
at.
that's a
Victorians,
problem, no.
you can go look
Really.
at historic Victorian precedents, and
Yeah.
they've got different
Well, you got that
languages.
gingerbread sort of
Right.
for the Victorian,
Right.
you know, and
Right.
then it goes to a straight rail for the balcony, which could be maybe a little bit more decorative.
Mr. Chase?
Yeah.
I do agree with the previous comments about the windows, but overall, I thought the presentation was very organized and thorough. And I really appreciated those research photos where you're showing the period correct, attributes and aesthetic for East Ybor. I thought that was very interesting. So.
No more questions.
I have a question. You had asked about the inset of the windows, and it was noted that the inset was to the face of the glass, not the face of the frame.
2.5 inches to the face of the frame, 3 inches.
3
to the
inches
glass,
to the glass.
Okay, all right.
which is okay. Could be a little bit more. I didn't know if it was
Yeah.
a structural limitation on the ICS.
But I think just as a final comment, I think just working with Ron and it's, for me, it's easy to see that this project could move forward.
And do you think there's enough here in the general design for like a preliminary to come back and work out some of those issues, or is this something
No.
that we empower staff?
I think with conditions and allow staff to work with the applicant.
I would agree. You make a motion today?
I didn't keep track of all the
Okay.
conditions like
I'm
you
making
did.
a motion. I'd like to entertain a motion. Oh, I'm on the wrong side. Darn it, I thought I had it the right way. Sorry, we got new binders today, so they're messing up my flow. I move for a final approval with conditions for a certificate of appropriateness and move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in BLC 25-00000251 for the property located at 2306 East 9th Avenue in the Ybor City Historic District with the following conditions. Oh my goodness, sorry. That the arrangement, quantity, and proportion of all window types at the west and east elevations, otherwise described as the left and right elevations of the home, be reconsidered to be more period appropriate, and that the shape, form, and a material selection of the main porch roof be revisited and reconsidered to be more period appropriate for the typology of the shotgun, and that the material choice for both the shed roof and the main roof of the porch be reconsidered to be more appropriate in terms of the district and the period of time. Is that the only thing?
I think that's
Two
it.
things, right? Yeah.
Work with staff and
And that
good
all
point.
shall be worked through with staff and approved by staff before moving forward. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons. It is consistent in terms of its setback, its alignment, the similarity of details and forms, and building materials.
Second.
For the applicant, there's been a number of conditions based on this, that you've just heard, those 4 conditions. We'd like you to acknowledge that you're in agreement with these conditions to move forward.
Yes, I do acknowledge the conditions and we agree to those to move forward.
Great, thank you. All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. And thank you to the city staff too, and Ron Bill.
Commissioner, good morning. Ron Vila with Historic Preservation. Our next agenda item is BLC-25-00-00253. This is for the address of 1452 Channelside Drive. Currently, it's a right-of-way. It's a vacant parcel with a roundabout. The underlying zoning in that area is YC6. The use moving forward is for a public open space, and the request is for certificate of appropriateness for new construction for a park with site improvements. This team has been in conversation with the City of Tampa Parks Department. There are no issues moving forward at this time, but they are working together on the final product. This is the Sanborn map from 1929. The area in the red is the local historic district. You see the property in question. It's bifurcated by our southern boundary. Half is in, half is out. So it's important for the whole project to have some consistency moving forward. This is our vicinity map. Once again, the property in question is down here, illustrated with the arrow showing the proximity of the subject site. And then an aerial. I think this is the best way to show exactly where this is at. That you have Nucio to the west, you have 4th Avenue to the south, and then you have the roundabout as you come into Ybor City. Avenida Republic of Cuba is 14th Street, which is over here. Just to show some of the site conditions, it's under construction right now. This is part of the Gasworks project that was reviewed by this board and approved. But you see the moving of the dirt there. This is looking back towards the south. And then this is looking to the north into Ybor City. And just to focus once again, I'm going to conclude with Gasworks is over here, 7th Avenue is to the north. And then you see this was Eagle Supply that this building was part of the Gasworks project that was in and out, and they incorporated a period-sensitive renovation to this building. And then this is the subject site here. So with that, I know that one of the presenters is time sensitive, that he's going to leave in a couple of minutes, so I'm going to pass it over to Graham.
Good morning, everyone. Graham Turrell with Kettler, Managing Director of Kettler for Florida. We're located at 1314 East 7th Avenue here in Ybor. I wanted to just provide a little bit of an introduction and some context, and then we have a presentation. I have Alan Ward here from Sasaki. He's going to walk you through the presentation of the design, but just want to give you a few sort of bits of information about kind of where we are generally on the Gasworks project and how this kind of fits in. So you may recall originally the master plan for Gasworks always included park space to replace the existing roundabout, or what was a roundabout. It's recently been removed. Part of that project also includes taking the roundabout crossing, which was the crossing of CSX tracks, and moving that to the north. So an important part of this project actually is perfecting the street grid. We're taking 4th Avenue, we're continuing it due west across the north side of this property and connecting over to Nucio Parkway. So that will then be a really important east-west crossing point for the whole of Gasworks and Ybor generally. We are currently underway with that infrastructure project. We are just finalizing our plans with CSX. We have in fact, going to City Council here in the next few weeks with a construction agreement with CSX to do that work. So generally speaking, though, the infrastructure work for this phase of Gasworks is starting to wrap up. You can see the construction happening out there with a lot of the buildings going up. And so it's really kind of a key part of our placemaking to get this park approved and built in time for the opening of those buildings that are being delivered in the sort of early 2027 timeframe. The park property itself is owned by the city of Tampa, so what was the roundabout parcel was owned by the city of Tampa. We went through an RFP process with the city. We were the only people to submit for the RFP, but we were awarded it. And so now we have integrated that property into the design of the rest of Gasworks, including what we call our Paseo, 3rd Avenue to the south. Again, Alan will show you all the details on this. But also kind of working with the City Parks and Recs Department to really come up with programmatically what the park wants to be and how it's going to work. The underlying sort of thesis of the RFP was that in return for us paying for and building the park for the city, because it will be owned as a city park for in perpetuity, but we would get a 25-year lease that allows us to operate a concessions building or a series of concession buildings within the park. We are showing those currently as placeholder locations within the plan today, but we are not looking for approval for those structures today because we are still working through that design. So we're going to come back with a second request to approve the actual buildings. So today we're really focused on more of the actual park design, the hardscape landscape, and just the general sort of programmatic features. And then as Ron mentioned, the other kind of quirky feature of this is that it's really only that northern piece of the park that's technically in the historic district, but obviously being that it's sort of half in, half out, we wanted to show you the whole thing and how it fits within the Gasworks property. So with that, I'll hand it over to Alan. He can walk you through the presentation. I think we have it teed up on the computer. And then I just want to note, as Ron mentioned, I do have to leave, but James Nozar, my colleague, will be coming, and he'll be here to answer any questions on behalf of the developer.
So, good morning. I'm Alan Ward with Sasaki. Sasaki were planners for the Gasworks Park District, and we're landscape architects for the park. So let me take you through the presentation. So, is this for advancing, or? So I'll start with the historic context. We've put together a series of images that place the park in the context of the past with views from 1920s, 1930s. I'll go briefly through that in order to focus more on the design of the park.
Try the keyboard. I give them a minute, they're working on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. we should do that. So we'll use this. So can we
Get
show
can we get the overhead monitor?
overhead?
The projector? They've got hard copies.
Use the paper.
Okay.
You got the paper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go an old school here.
Okay, so this shows the overall district, the Gasworks district with the park site generally in the center between 4th Avenue on the north, 3rd on the south, and as Graham mentioned, 4th Avenue is being reconstituted and will cross the CSX right-of-way. It's central to the district. It's within a 5-minute walk of kind of each part of the Gasworks district, and it's about 800 feet from 7th Avenue. So this is a significant new open space for Ybor City. So this is a view from the late 30s with the Gasworks plant to the south. You see the channel side is in place at 13th Street. So it just gives you a sense of the historic industrial context for the site, which has influenced our design thinking because we're south of the more significant brick buildings of Ybor City. We're in a more industrial-oriented kind of area. Okay. These are views from the 20s on the left, looking north. So that is the site with 4th Avenue at the top, and then looking south to the balance of industrial area south of the site, and Channel Side on the left. And then here more at eye level, looking south at the site, and also from the north side, once again, it's just in front of the gasworks facility you see in the distant background on the right. In this panoramic view looking north, the site is just south of this photo, but we enlarged a portion of this photo because you can see some of these buildings, let's move a pen or something. Yeah. You can see right here, these industrial buildings influenced our thinking in terms of the design expression of this concessions building. So we're making this transition from the more significant brick buildings of Ybor City and residential buildings to the east to this industrial area. So the character and kind of spirit of those buildings you see there influenced our kind of conceptual thinking. While we're not asking for approval of those, you'll see in the renderings, they're kind of been masked, and we've shown this kind of scale that you see here with the concessions building on the north side of the site in the historic district. So here's the map that Ron had showed earlier, straddling the district. Okay. And these, of course, were views for this roundabout is now gone, but just a series of views of what it once was. Obviously, a significant transformation in scale and character to this area. And then these are the E1 to E3 parcels under construction east of the site. There is kind of an implied line of symmetry from the warehouse buildings to the east through the center of the site, which also coincides with the historic district line. And then it does become this significant new park in Ybor City. In central Ybor, you can see it's kind of the southwest park. There are 3 others. It's comparable in scale to Centennial Park, which is 1.5 acres. This is just about 1 acre. So a significant new addition to Ybor City. So this is the context within the Gasworks redevelopment plan. And as Graham mentioned, you can see why this park is so important as part of the next phase of redevelopment, with the residential buildings to the west. E1 to E3 to the east are under construction, so the park becomes central to this significant first couple phases of redevelopment, but also central to the district and within walking distance of all of the future redevelopment as well. Actually, could you go back to that one just for one? It's worth pointing out also, there is another park just to the southwest, right here, a private park space, and that's envisioned as a dog park, so that kind of key programmatic function will be accommodated in that future park to the southwest along the CSX right-of-way, so it's not within this park. Obviously, there'll be a significant demand for dog parks in this area with that many residents. Okay, so this is the park design, and first let me talk a little about the right-of-ways and some easements, which have kind of constrained some of the potential design elements. The channel side right-of-way is quite wide. It extends, perceptually, it would be well into the park along the east side. You can see that right-of-way line kind of right here. So significant part of the park is actually in the channel side right-of-way. The 3rd Avenue right-of-way, that's an abandoned right-of-way, so that now is part of the park space. And then the CSX right-of-way on the northwest side. And then there are some other infrastructure elements that need to be accommodated before I get to the design. There is a relocated 20-foot storm easement. You see it right here, and it lies below a significant pedestrian walkway just north of the 3rd Avenue Paseo. That Paseo is an extension of the Paseo from the east, same design. It would have very limited automobile traffic, primarily for drop-off, but probably will be used mostly by pedestrians. There also is a transformer, some switch gear. Those are identified as 16 is a transformer, 14 is switchgear, and those are being screened behind green walls, similar to what was done at Water Street quite effectively. So you'll see those in some of the renderings. So there is a zone of infrastructure we had to accommodate on the south side of this park design. Now, the key elements of the park, at the center, number 10, is this lawn. Now, this is a fairly modest central open space, central green area. It's less than 50 feet wide, a little over 100 feet long, actual turf, held level. It becomes suitable to stage in small events or performances. To the right, at 11, right here, is a covered shade structure used during the day, provide some protection from the sun or rain, but also then adapts as a covering for a potential stage or event that would take place in the space. Then wrapping around that central lawn are two alleys of trees to the north and the south, fairly closely spaced, so they'll provide shade early on, and then there's trees on Channel Side, which is an extension of that planting plan for Channel Side. So there's a significant amount of shade created in this area. The other thing I should mention is there is some topography that we've used to our advantage. As you look to the north and northwest, it's 3 to 4 feet higher. The low point is at the southeast corner at Channel Side and 3rd Avenue. So what we've done is held the area level from Channel Side and 3rd. All of this zone is basically just pushed in and held level. That then creates, along the western edge, this terrace condition with these small terraces and steps. It sort of acts as a buffer to the CSX right-of-way. That terracing overlooks the key kind of central feature, this fountain, number 9 on the plan, and we're still working on the design of that fountain. That's kind of central to the park at that northwestern edge. Sight lines kind of converge at that point. And then that same kind of level zone extends up to 7, which is a slightly elevated terrace for the concessions building, which is shown as 1 and 2, right at the corner of 4th Avenue and Channel Side. And then that concessions building extends outward onto that terrace, and the terrace overlooks the park to the south. There also are public restrooms at 4. It's also the restrooms for the concessions building. Along the western edge, that number 12 is a 10-foot wide multi-purpose path, and that in the future will extend north. It extends up to the intersection at Channel Side, crosses here, and extends along the streetcar line north into central Ybor City. And then that extends south in future phases as well. So that's right along the CSX right-of-way edge. Now the other kind of component of the plan is, while there's this more significant concessions building at the northeast corner, there are 2 other opportunities for concessions as kind of a triangulated arrangement at 13 to the east and another 13 to the west, right here and here. So that starts to activate, and it's kind of provides further sort of food and beverage service at the southern edge of this park. So you can see these programmatic elements, if you look at the pattern of successful urban parks, they contribute significantly to really bringing activity to these places during the day and well into the evening. The more significant one is the concessions building to the north, and you'll see that in the renderings. There also is parking along Channel Side, number 17, a series of curbside parallel spaces there. Okay, let's go on. Some of the dimensional issues. So this is a relatively small park, and we've tried to create the scale that is appropriate for Ybor City. These trees are on a grid about 24 feet apart, so it's fairly tight, significant planting areas under them. The lawn, as I mentioned, is a fairly small, compact lawn, so it doesn't take a lot of people to activate this space. It seems appropriate for the scale of Ybor City. However, the sidewalk on the right, on Channel Side, is a fairly broad right-of-way, so that sidewalk to the north is about 11.5 feet wide here. It widens to 20 feet to the south. So that's a pretty significant pedestrian zone. And then on the southern edge, the Paseo is also about 20 feet wide. That will be used by pedestrians, occasionally by vehicles. And then also the storm easement is another pedestrian sidewalk zone between the trees. So basically, the ground cover is lawn and then all these planting zones under the trees. Okay. So these show some of the kind of character images of what we're aiming for with this design. At the top, you see the planting along the street. That would characterize the planting under the trees along Channel Side. Some of the furnishings that would be part of the park. The idea of movable chairs under these trees. There is also fixed seating at those edges of those planters as well. So there's a lot of seating opportunities to respond to the climate, move in or out of the sun depending on the season. And then at the top here is a kind of a reuse of an industrial building as a beer garden with tables and chairs, picnic tables under trees. So that's kind of the character and spirit of this concessions building with its courtyard space and seating under the trees. You'll see it in the renderings. And then there's also more on the furnishings, the fountain, as well as the terrace seating you see on the lower right here, and then the lawn space. Okay. So this shows some of the furnishings, the trash receptacles, bike racks in metal like the rest of the district, brick treatment of the parking spaces on Channel Side. We're proposing that most of the paving be cast-in-place concrete scored. However, the trail, which is a little softer for runners and pedestrians as well, be asphalt along that western edge. And then stone dust paving, it probably should say decomposed granite. That's proposed for that terrace around concessions. It would be heavily stabilized because of the amount of rains we have in the summer. So it's almost like hard surface concrete paving if you stabilize it enough, but it's a little bit different feel than just extensive amounts of concrete paving. A fence along CSX and then the terracing along the edge of the fountain at the CSX right away. So with all of these planting areas, there are significant opportunities for planting. Our thought is the scale of that is up to about 3 feet with kind of a pretty good variety of Florida plants. We're working with dark moss on the planting plan. All of this is kept at that height, so you would see under the trees that are limbed up and over this sort of ground cover and shrubs and other planting that occurs in these planting beds around the trees. So there's openness for kind of design as well as security reasons within the park. And here's the planting plan. It won't take long for the trees to reach this kind of canopy size and provide the shade. We're showing a few kind of informally placed palm trees that are a little more picturesque in form in the lawn, just as a counterpoint to the kind of ordered geometry of these allées on each side. And then smaller trees along by the fountain, by CSX, and next to the concessions building. So here's the first rendering, and it's looking a little harsh in these copies, but so that concessions building at the southeast corner, that's a placeholder. That may in fact be a movable vendor. It may be a small structure. So we're still at a stage of working out exactly what those are, what the tenant requirements are. But then beyond that, you see the green screen for the switchgear, the kind of simple shaded covered area, which also is adaptable into a stage. That's the Paseo in the foreground, and then this is the sidewalk north of the Paseo that goes right through here with the tables and chairs within it, and the wide sidewalks on Channel Side. So this view is from the fountain, from that slightly elevated condition along that multi-purpose trail looking over the fountain. And that fountain will likely contain a mist function, so at night it would be illuminated and kind of reinforce its focus within the park as you look from the surrounding streets. And then that's a view towards the lawn. You can see these kind of picturesque palm trees with curving trunks that would be kind of a counterpoint to the grid of trees around the lawn space. This is at the northeast corner at 4th Avenue. Once again, this is a placeholder. You can see the kind of scale of that building is similar to what we saw in those early historic photographs of the industrial shed-like buildings in this part of Ybor City. But this is looking south, Channel Side on the left. This is 4th Avenue in the foreground. And here we are looking east across the lawn towards that shaded, covered area which adapts into a stage at times. And here we're looking towards the concession building from that central axis. That actually, the middle of that is the line of the historic district. So north of it is the historic district. And we're looking at, and this needs to be coordinated with the tenant, but we're looking at a covered area as in addition to the trees in this courtyard space. So that may attach to the building, may become separate, but there's a pretty significant seating area outside that concessions building, potential indoor, outdoor bar. And you see it's slightly elevated about 2 feet or so from the general level of the park space. And here we're at the southwest corner, looking back. The third concessions building, another small building that is at that corner. And this is that sidewalk just north of the Paseo looking towards the lawn. And then we're in the lawn space, looking north. That's the central alley of trees, significant planting in the planting beds around those trees, and then the concessions building to the north, slightly elevated. Okay. Another view, more central. So there's a sloped walk that accesses that terrace on the left, and then steps at the center and to the right as well to connect that terrace down into the park. And then within the terrace, looking back, relatively informal arrangement of tables under this, under several fairly large trees, along with a covered area that provides additional protection and shade. And then the southeast corner of that concessions building terrace with the steps up, and once again, placeholder for the architecture of this building that will follow. And then here, looking from the lawn towards the water feature, and then the terracing behind it with seating and places to sit, and then small trees behind that. So here are some of the sources of inspiration for the future design of these buildings. These are all kind of near this part of the site. So you can see when you add in and layer in some of the signs and lighting and have openings that make it indoor, outdoor, that building will start to contribute to that space in that upper terrace. And then this, the last image, shows the character of some other examples that are similar to what we're considering here. At the left, you see this industrial building with like garage doors that open and close during the seasons. Those 2 smaller kiosks could either be permanent structures, like you see in the lower left, or towards the center, something that is movable and can have a little more flexibility. So it's a beer garden under trees, inspired by the industrial character of these lightweight metal buildings. So it's aiming to look like something that just feels like it came and was inspired by the district, but also has a casual feel that's appropriate for a park space. So that concludes our presentation. We think it'll be a significant new open space for Gasworks District and for Ybor City, a gathering space that kind of is active from the daytime well into the evening and has a chance for programming events on the weekends as well. Okay.
And again, I unfortunately have to leave at this point, but James Nazar is here now to answer any questions on behalf of the ownership and developer as well as Alan. I think James might need to be sworn in if he has questions. Okay, so, but with that, I think that concludes our presentation.
Do I need to sign in?
Sworn in?
Do I need?
Go ahead and swear him in now.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give provides today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Kind of a unique request. It's something that we don't see all the time, but you saw the sensitivity that they put into it and moving forward. So staff's finding that this application is consistent with the standards that we use. We use the Ybor City Design Guidelines. There's some language in the guidelines, but not to this level. So then we looked at the Secretary of Interior standards as well, at settings within the district and the neighborhood to create that sense of place. You had a very conceptual, long-term approach that was presented to you. You saw some of the consistency with the materials that are already in the district and what they're coming forward for disapproval. So the discussion, you could have an overall discussion, but as you lead into your motion, it should focus on the short-term plans of the approval. That would focus on the hardscape, the landscape, and the park-like features that they have, and the park design. You saw the continuity, that the boundary runs between the subject site, but it flows as one. And then when you do your motion, it should focus on what you feel is appropriate for this morning, and I'll be here to answer any questions if you like. And then the vertical elements, they talked about the long-term viability of this site. That would come back at a future public hearing, and that could be illustrated in your motion as well. I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Vila. Anyone here from the public wishing to comment on the case? Seeing none, we'll proceed with some questions of the applicant, starting with Ms. Salaga.
I don't have any questions at the moment. This is pretty, it was a wonderful presentation and what a definite positive move forward for the redevelopment of that whole area. Thank you.
Question for staff and then question for client or agent. Are we also looking at park signage? I know we're not doing concessionaire signage, but the park overall.
What we discussed internally was that you're looking more at a horizontal palette
Okay.
moving forward. And then as things come vertical, if some things could come to the staff and we could handle that administratively. If there's some issues that come to get the ball rolling, that we could do that. But the larger overall project would have to come back to the board for a final approval.
Does that include the site lighting as well?
It's a sight lining, I believe if it's horizontal, if it's in the walkways, things of that nature, we could probably do administratively. Anything vertical, I feel uncomfortable doing at staff as the overall conceptual plan moving forward, so that would probably
But
come
are we
forward.
reviewing that today as an element of this?
Is that part of something that you want to see move forward?
Well, I didn't present the lighting, we have been working.
Oh, I just saw it in imagery, so I
Yes.
was wondering if that was under our scope for today.
I think we could add that to the consideration with the vertical structures, since after all, it's.
Okay, we'll just leave it for that then, so
Above the
anything
ground plane.
horizontal. Okay, so I have a question. Retaining wall for the agent. Sorry, Ron, thank you. For the retaining walls, what's the intended materiality there and finish?
Yes, well, I think those walls probably would, well, the walls on the west.
I'm speaking specifically to anything where so you mentioned the west side
Right.
where you have the multi-user trail. Then
Right,
you also have
right.
the terraced seating,
Right.
and then you have an elevated court area for that
Right.
larger
Right.
concession space.
Ideally, the walls to the northwest, next to the fountain and the trail, would be precast concrete. However, we haven't finalized all the material selections in relation to the budget, so there is a potential for those to be cast in place, but ideally they'd be precast. And that would apply to that low wall and steps that ascend to the terrace for the concessions building as well.
would they have any kind of texture to them, or do you see that as being more of a
Well,
smooth texture?
as exterior and walking surfaces, there would have to be some texture to
Right.
avoid it becoming too smooth. So it would be to meet the standards of kind of non-slip surface.
So
yes.
I'm speaking more to the walls themselves that would retain all of that grade.
Right,
So I understand about the slip resistance and all that for the walking. It's really more about when the element comes up vertically and it comes horizontally to make a top of wall
Right,
condition. What is the intent there at this time, or do we need to table that for another?
I think you could include that if you'd like, because the design has not really been developed to, to its kind of completed form. So if you want to add that to consideration of the vertical elements, we could.
Okay, all right, I think that's fair. Well, other than that, I don't think I have any questions right now.
Hi, I have two questions. First is do you know like the width and how tall the the fence along the CSX property is?
How tall the,
I'm just like, it's not like a kid could like run through, like obviously it will be
Oh, the
appropriate
fence,
for,
the fence
yeah,
at the
the
edge, yeah.
fence.
it's probably 3'6". It's probably, a code height fence, I would imagine. So it's not like you can easily get over it. It's meant to be a deterrent for children.
Cool.
Because obviously, at Fourth Avenue, you're in the right of way. So you have children gathered around that interactive fountain, so you want to avoid kids running into that right of way. So it's mainly for prevention of, keep children within a certain zone.
Okay, cool. And then second, the brick paver parking on the channel side. This might be a question for staff, but I was wondering if the historic brick that was removed around the roundabout, is that what's going to be used for the?
I don't think so. I think we use brick, if you're going to drive on this brick surface, I think it's probably a more durable, with higher compressive strength. But we've specified that same brick treatment on parcels E1 to E3, so it would be consistent with that.
Okay, thank you.
With, excuse me, Keynote 13, the concession pad sites, how, you haven't really, you've kind of located them, do you know what size they're gonna be?
Yeah, we used some sizes that you are familiar with, perhaps at other major parks, like in Central Park in New York, those concessions, and we showed a photograph of one. They were made by an Italian manufacturer. They're about 10 by 12 feet. And they provide a variety of uses, whether it's food and beverage or access to information about the park or bike rental or whatever. So we size them at that range, but we still have to have a dialogue with those future tenants for both those small little structures and the larger concessions building as well. But it would be in that range. That's what fits rather conveniently within the walkways and the grid of trees.
Okay, and that would be flush with the, and you have stabilized grade leading up there so you can load in, load out.
That's right. The Third Avenue Paseo has occasional automobile traffic drop-off, would provide a service function for those two southern kiosks. And then the concessions building, I didn't point it out, but there, between the restrooms and the concessions building is a little service yard at the northern end. So you could pull off of Fourth Avenue, and there's a small service area there for trash and receiving.
Yeah, I think it's important to have good
That's right.
circulation for maintenance and,
That's right.
and,
And it also would be a service area for the park itself.
and fire.
Yeah.
They're gonna want something there too. I don't know.
Could you ask
So-
him to put the
Could you put up the overall site plan up
site
with
plan,
the
one of
keynotes?
them? Yeah.
You want me to ask one of those? Okay. Since we're, excuse me. Since we're up in the concessions area, are you gonna have dumpsters on site for collection of trash, or is that something that's gonna be kind of collected and brought to another parcel with a larger solid waste capability, like P1 or P2?
Okay, so the service area that I mentioned, if you notice 3 up here, that's kind of north of the tree-covered seating area and has an entry to the north from Fourth Avenue. So that would be the location for dumpsters, trash from the concessions building or from the park. And then the park itself, there would be trash receptacles as part of the furnishings.
Right.
And you have pretty good accessibility around all edges because that multi-purpose trail is 10 feet wide. You have the Paseo on the south. So you have pretty good accessibility in terms of, you know, service requirements.
So you will have a dumpster in the park?
Well, if there is a dumpster, it would be in that service area at 3. And then
Like
trash
what?
receptacles within the park.
Right, like little individual trash receptacles, you're
Correct.
gonna have those as part of your
Correct.
furniture package. But
Correct.
yeah, if there's a dumpster, it needs to be enclosed, protected, I'd say for you guys, try to get it off-site if you can.
That could be.
But I think that'll be part of your vertical package
right.
when we talk about the
Right.
concrete, the lighting, the signage, trash, you know, just. So if we talk about lighting there, are you planning on using any globe lights? I saw like a circular type of street light. Is that kind of like your
That was a
standard?
Tico fixture that is being used elsewhere on channel side. So that's consistent with the rest of the district. And then there's other lighting, supplemental lighting, of course, within the park. And we're still working with the lighting consultant on how many fixtures and whether these are taller poles and fewer fixtures or something that is more kind of rhythmically spaced between the trees to get the scale right. But you also need a function that helps support when it's an entertainment venue with other lighting options on that and lighting opportunities integrated within the stage structure. So we're still kind of working through the refinements of the lighting plan and the options for the fixtures.
And I noticed a lot of the fixtures that you showed us were very consistent with the design guidelines that you shared for the Gasworks
That's
district.
right.
So I think there's a lot of consistency there with how you're bringing those elements
That's
in
right.
with the material palette and everything. So I like that. The asphalt walk on the west side, I see it on this block and the adjacent blocks. What's the long-term plan for, where's that tying into? Where's that gonna go?
So we had diagrammed it during the master planning process of following the east side of the streetcar line north, and that takes you up to the garage in Ybor City. And then on the south, it kind of shares the bend here at Third Avenue and can extend further south multiple blocks in that direction. But we had just diagrammed that along that edge and is included as part of the plans for the redevelopment of those parcels to the south, C1 and C2.
But it'll tie into like, hopefully some of the greenways and
Potentially,
trails.
all the way down
Okay.
to the greenways at the Selman. And we had diagrammed that as a bigger network in the master planning process.
Yeah, 'cause it's a nice buffer, but it's a nice activity zone and a buffer to the rail tracks.
That's
So I
right,
like
that's
that
right.
move.
And, you know, in the interim, it still will find some use as part of a pedestrian network within Gasworks, and all the better if it extends further.
And you kind of talked about I think my colleague and I were both observing some of the trees on the lawn there. We're like, well, I'm not sure you want to put trees there, but they look like they're tall palms, so it's more like a stick and it won't block views or anything
That's
like
right.
that.
Yeah,
Won't really create shade, but.
Yeah, not so much shade. We had a lot of success with this in a park. We did a similar scaled lawn, a little bit bigger, in South Florida, outside Miami. And it had a very organized grid of trees, and then we had sable palms there and purposely selected kind of these arcing trunk patterns. And they're beautiful, almost in a way like a sculptural form. So this might be a cabbage palm instead of a sable palm because it's a slightly different climate zone. But what it does, it adds sort of a bit of relief to the sort of gridded geometry, and you pick the selected specimens and then take them on the site and kind of compose them in an artful way in relation to the existing, the trees you've already planted. So it's it's another way to bring a level of interest to that space, and also it does create a little bit of, a spot of shade on that lawn.
Nice folly, for
Yeah.
that rigid park. But I think it's very well done, and I'm excited. I'm gonna grab a coffee there. Any other questions?
I do have one. Did you have any questions? You already did, okay. So we're talking about horizontal, what are we doing in terms of storm? Are there any inlets anywhere? Does the lawn
Yes.
have drainage?
Yes, first of all, there is a storm easement line which has been relocated, and that is the 20-foot easement here.
Right.
And then there will be, of course, inlets within all of the park, and then there will be a structure under the lawn is the ultimate receiving location and retention area for the park drainage.
So have a cistern under the lawn?
Not really a structure, stormwater structure.
Okay, okay.
Whether
It'll
it
be tied
functions as
in.
a cistern or not, we haven't
Right.
quite got there yet.
Well, I vote for that.
Okay.
So we asked about that, we asked about the trash. Trying to think of other things that we know like could be problematic. I don't know.
We'll figure that out.
I think
Well,
they-
yeah,
I
well,
think they know what they're doing.
When you come back for the vertical portions, will you be bringing material boards for everything?
Yes, yeah, we wanna-
Including transitions, like ADA transition pieces
And
and things
paving.
like that? It's a small project, but it's a big deal, I think, especially being one of the doorways into Ybor.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have concerns about the trash being at the north end. I know why, there really are no back doors to this site except for the CXS line, but you've made it such a lovely spot that I even have a hard time thinking about trash there. But if trash goes there, it needs to be tucked away somehow.
Well, I didn't mention that area between 3 and 1 would be fenced in. And there
It
would be
is, and
a gate
screened
to
in
that,
some
so
way?
it would be above eye level, the fence would be above eye level, so you would not see into that service zone.
Yeah, so we'll need to see that when you come back
Sure,
with your
sure.
building. Yeah, okay. Well, that's good to know. Thank you.
Okay,
So how?
we've asked some questions of you. You have a few moments if you'd like to summarize any of the testimony you give or talked about or rebut anything.
No, I would just say we share your excitement about the potential for this park in this part of Ybor City. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing and can have some discussion amongst ourselves. Mr. Corley.
Great presentation. I love green space. I think it's pivotal and necessary for any historic or modern district. I thought your renderings were very hopeful and realistic. I used to operate the historic streetcars of Ybor, and I would go north and south here on Channelside Drive, and I think this new view is going to be very beautiful. So now I'm even thinking there might be even a new streetcar station nearby as this becomes more visited. But definitely very excited for this. Thank you.
I agree. This is just gonna be a great way to stitch it all back together. I used to use the roundabout all the time, but this is a much better use of land, in my opinion.
And again, a ditto on the benefit of the presentation and the thoroughness with which all of these elements have been explained, and yes, it will be fabulous for Ybor.
Yeah, I'm excited for this. You know, I always thought the roundabout was fairly useful in that period and getting around, and I miss the exits and the easy way to get into Ybor City. But I think this is a much better use. I like, you know, the big picture. We talked about this when we reviewed the overall plan, is reconnecting the street grids of Ybor, and this is a triangular piece that's always an oddball lot and left out, but there's always so much opportunity to do with these triangular pieces. It creates a unique dynamic space, and I think you've really taken advantage of that with your different corners and centralizing your space. So I love the layout. I think it's awesome, and can't wait to see this come to fruition. And I think we're ready for a motion.
So what are we doing, a preliminary approval?
It'd be a final for the horizontal elements,
Oh, okay. Well, I'll give
and
it
they'll
a
come
whirl.
back to us for the vertical.
Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in BLC 25-0000253 for the property located between 4th Avenue to the north, 3rd Avenue to the south, Channel Side to the east, and the CXS Railroad to the west. Because based on the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines of the City of Tampa, the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and the settings of the district neighborhood, pages 66 to 68 of the guidelines.
So I'm sorry, I thought we were doing with conditions. Because we
I
couldn't.
didn't get that far
Oh,
yet
okay,
in that.
I'm sorry.
For the horizontal elements being presented for this project with the following conditions. And they are, may I help you?
I'm sorry. I guess we should have talked about it before. We didn't get to look at the site lighting, so they're gonna bring that back with the vertical. We didn't get to really understand the materiality of retaining walls, steps and ramps, so that,
Okay.
and then the signage. We had talked about the signage coming back as well.
And fencing. The
And fencing. So yeah, there's a few. Sorry, Vivian.
Do we have a second?
If I just may add the street address, 1452 Channel Side Drive for that
Okay.
VLC number, thank you.
So are we clear? Yeah, okay. Yeah, second.
Okay. There's been a few conditions placed on the applicant to come back to us with the vertical elements, including the concrete walls, lighting, signage, trash, fencing, and the concessions building. Can the applicant acknowledge that they are okay with these conditions, and we'll move forward with the vote?
Just say,
You acknowledge the conditions of, okay. The applicant has acknowledged the conditions. All in favor of said motion, say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good.
And we have a motion to receive and file.
Motion to receive and file all documents submitted during today's hearing for the record,
and
into the
staff
record,
approvals.
with the staff approvals as well, into the records.
Second.
All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Seeing no other business in front of us, I'd like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, enjoy your holidays, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.